Uh, Good afternoon, everyone here on the West Coast, and good morning if you're watching from China, from Hong Kong, Singapore, or anywhere else in East Asia. So my name is Scott Rozelle. I'm the faculty co-director here at SCI. That's Stanford Center on China's Economy and Institutions. SKY, just pronounce it as Sky, okay? For those of you who don't know what Sky is, Stanford's home for empirical multidisciplinary research on China's economies and institutions. We really aim to foster path-breaking research, create transformative student experiences, and advance public understanding of China and its impact on the world. We're really, really pleased to partner with the Stanford Alumni Association to offer China Chats, this event series that we're having today. The goal of China Chats is to host faculty, and we have one of my great colleagues here today, to bringing the latest of China-related research and insights from Stanford to our alums and friends all over the world. Today's event is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our website next week. So if your friends couldn't make it because they haven't got out of bed or they're in a breakfast meeting, tell them about it and have them watch that, okay? So what I'm going to do right now is introduce our speaker for the day. And here she is. Her name is Professor Zhenan Bao. Zhenan is the KK Lee Professor of Chemical Engineering, and by courtesy, the Professor of Chemistry and Professor of Material Science and Engineering at Stanford University. She founded the Stanford Wearable Electronics Initiative. We're going to hear more about wearable electronics in 2016 and serves as its faculty director. Prior to joining Stanford in 2004, she was a distinguished member of the technical staff in the Bell Labs Lucent Technologies from 1995 to 2004. She received her PhD in chemistry from the University of Chicago in 1995. She has, listen to this, 700 refereed publications, 100 US patents. She has a Google H index of 190. That means that 190 of her publications have 190 or more citations. If you add them all up, there's 150,000 citations. That's how important the field thinks of her work, and that's a lot. It's one of the best published faculty members at the whole Stanford University. Professor Bao has received notable recognition for her work in chemical engineering. Most recently, she was the inaugural recipient of the Vin Future Prize as a female innovator in 2021. She also won the ACS Chemistry of Materials Award in 2022, the MRS Mid-Career Award in 2021. These are very recent awards, so that this is that her work is really being identified. The AICHE, it must be some sort of association, Alpha Chi Sigma Award of 2021, the ACS Central Science Disruptor and Innovation Prize in 2020, and the Gibbs Medal by the Chicago session of the ACS in 2020. Let's get rid of this slide and let's see Zhenan herself. And today's China Chat. Hi, Zhenan.
Hi, Scott.
Today's China Chat, unlike our previous lecture, we're going to have a conversation, her back and forth. And for the first half of the event, I have prepared some questions for Zhenan. They're hard ones now, and we will save the second half of the event to take questions from the audience. So you're going to be able to type them in, and I'll read them and pick and choose, and you can have a conversation with Zhenan. So here we go, Zhenan. We've known each other for quite a number of years. Sky has a internship for high school students, and her daughter for 2 different years was our superstar intern. So now she comes to our events on Stanford campus. She's a sophomore at Stanford. So here we go. This is going to be about your personal story, your personal background. I have a couple questions, and then just take off and address whichever one you want to, Zhenan. So, who motivated you to become a scientist? Is there anyone from your childhood or a school or a faculty when you're in undergrad or grad school that sort of motivated you and directed you in this way that's certainly giving you this special life? For those of us without a science background, can you tell us briefly in layman's languages a little about your work, some of your discoveries, and how you do this in real life? As a social scientist, I'm going to be taking notes over here. So, Jenna, what's happening here?
Okay, all right. First, Scott, thanks so much for having me here. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining with me in the next hour or so. Well, Scott, as for your question, who motivated me to be a scientist? Well, I guess I'll start with my childhood. I think my parents, particularly my father, played a very important role in me getting interested in science. So my mother is a chemist. My father is a physicist. They were both professors at Nanjing University. Nanjing was the city I grew up in. And when I was very young, I was always very active. My father would call me like a little monkey because I like monkey bars and just play outside all the time. And I like pick stones. There was a special type of stone in Nanjing that's very famous and it's beautiful. And I always dream of the beautiful large stones I can get one day, but usually I find in sand pieces of it. And my father would encourage me to ask questions when we go to the park, to have picnic, or when I help him to repair things in the apartment, and he would. I think it's only after I started to have my own children I realized that the questions he used to pose to me were actually intentional questions to encourage me to think. And not only he encouraged me to ask questions, but rather to seek for answers in advance, or thinking about the answers myself before just trying to ask questions. So that was really important, I think, in shaping my way of thinking. And I remember playing with pH papers, distilled water bottles in my mother's lab, and my father would bring back silicon chip integrated circuit that looks like a colorful mirrors. And those were, I think, were early days that sparked my interest. And then when I was in high school, we started taking chemistry classes, and I always enjoyed cooking. My sister and I started cooking when we were very young, actually before middle school, because my parents once had to go for some travel for their work, and then my sister and I started cooking, and we enjoyed it. So when I took chemistry, I found it was really like cooking, and I was good at it. So I think that's why I started majoring in chemistry in college. And of course, my high school teacher had a lot to do with it because the chemistry teacher made the chemistry very interesting. Yeah, so that was how I get started.
So, just for those without a science background, so you got started. So tell us a little about your work and some of your first discoveries and sort of the implications for life as a as a chemist or life as a professor of chemistry or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the work we're doing currently is with the ultimate goal to build electronics that can allow human to be closer to, or allow human to understand our own health much better. And the type of electronics we build, we call electronic skin. So basically, we see a future where electronics are no longer rigid and brittle, like our computer. If it's dropped onto the floor, it's going to break. The cell phone screen is going to break if it's dropped. But we envision that the electronics of the future are going to be like our skin, very soft and stretchy, and may even be able to heal themselves when there are scratches or some cracks. And also they are biodegradable if needed. The reason we want to do that is imagine if for a patient who lost the sense of touch, having a prosthetic hand, and now the prosthetic limbs cannot provide the sensory feedback. And imagine if we have a sheet of electronic skin that can cover on the surface of the prosthetic hand to allow the patient to regain sense of touch. Or imagine the wearable electronics that are instead of just having a small patch that has maybe one or two sensors, but rather being able to map all the electrical signal and chemical signal from our entire body, then we may be able to have a much better way to understand our own health and be able to monitor the change in our health condition and predict potentially disease that may not even showing symptom yet.
So these are like implications for real life for a lot. Wow, it's very exciting. I've been in the last few weeks. I've been reading the abstracts of your paper because the papers are way too complicated. But it's really exciting. A lot to do. I want to turn to doing innovative research. Okay, I have a couple questions. Let me ask the first one here. So, how do you do that, right? How do you find this? How do you cultivate science innovation? This is really innovative. And what is the U.S. doing in this? That maybe our friends in China could learn from. Perhaps you want to turn that around, right? What's China doing that maybe the U.S. can learn from? But just this idea of cultivating, science innovation. How does that happen?
Well, I spent my first 8 years of independent career in biolaboratories, which was used to be a premier industrial research lab, which had multiple Nobel Prize winners. And there, I saw how the research lab encouraged collaboration and encouraged an environment of problem-rich environment. Basically, we had chemists, physicists, electrical engineers, or even biologists and computer scientists, all working in the same building. And we run into each other at lunch in the cafeterias or in the hallway. And all these unexpected encounters and just conversations lead to interesting new ideas or lead to finding new problems that I would have never thought about if I just confined to my own lab and working on problems that I imagine or maybe read some papers about. So I found that kind of environment extremely stimulating. So in Stanford, I try to cultivate that kind of environment in my own research group, but also in the bigger environment. Stanford University, I think, has the culture of trying to promote collaborations and kind of promote ways to get people from different background and different disciplines really to get together and talk to each other, and frequently that really lead to new ideas. And I think I really truly believe having people coming from different disciplines and different ethnic background and really having the diversity is important for creativity and for being able to do research and science at a high level, because we all bring different perspectives and different expertise.
Yeah. So and you know, that's what Stanford's known for, and I know it's what you're known for. It's sort of this cross-discipline design and everything. So I'm going to push you a little further. So that's how you sort of get these ideas. But then you're also a mentor and a teacher, a professor, and you're known. Everybody at Stanford knows you for your mentorship and leadership in your field. As a Chinese female scientist operating in the U.S., what are the opportunities and challenges you see in sort of cultivating this next generation of scholars? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities for your students and for other students that are in groups like yours?
Yeah, I think my own view of what is a good mentor, excellent mentor, and how to be an excellent mentor evolves over time. And I feel I'm constantly still learning to be a better mentor. The challenge is really every individual is different. Every student is different. And in a university setting, we constantly have students graduating, new students coming, and the group culture might evolve over time. And also, even when I teach a class, even though I'm teaching exactly the same material, but depending on different years, a different group of students, so they may receive it completely differently. So I feel that the biggest challenge with mentorship is really to understand the individuals who are receiving mentorship, what they really need, and how to communicate with each individual in an effective way. We all have different ways of understanding messages, or in a conversation, the same exact sentence may be interpreted completely differently. Yeah, that's really what I find to be the biggest challenge. But my philosophy is that all the students who come to us, they're really the top of the top students. And if we are able to, as mentor, as a professor, if we are able to figure out ways to motivate our students to be the best they can, to realize their potential, then we can get the most exciting research done and have the most exciting innovations. So that's what also motivates me to really think about how to be a good mentor. Oh, Scott, I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, so I just want to follow up on that. And and talk about sort of on the talent that's coming in there. You say you have really good students, but what's your observation on a little deeper on the young talent these days? In your lab, do you hire more students from the US, from outside of the US? And why are there differences in how you mentor them? Do you see that trend changing? And is your observation for your STEM lab versus other STEM labs around the US is do you sort of have these same trends that you're seeing?
My lab is very diverse. We have students from US, from China, Korea, Japan, Singapore, also from European countries. Once in a while, maybe one or two from Australia. But from all over the world. And it's really fun to have students bring all their different cultures and educate each other. But I do see one trend that concerns me, that is we do see less students from China applying to us. Here, I want to take this opportunity and tell students from China that we welcome you. We want you to come here. And there are a number of reasons that they're still declining, but we here in Stanford University, we welcome students from all countries and from all backgrounds.
So if you're in science, go apply to her. If you're a social science, apply to us. We want you too. No, I agree 100%, Zhenan. So I'm in this collaboration, and I'm an economist, right? I know nothing about chemical engineering. I don't even like to cook. Stanford's always known for its cross-discipline collaboration. Do you see opportunities for collaborating between engineering and social science? Economics. You can do political science or sociology or anthropology, but
yeah,
this
definitely.
I want to be in your lab.
Scott, I'll be happy to have you anytime. Definitely, I see a lot of potential collaborations. And as an engineer and also many other scientists who are in the area of developing new technologies, new inventions, sometimes it's hard to predict what might happen, especially the issue related to ethics, privacy, and all these issues are things we need to consider and think about in advance, especially I think in recent years, the AI, how AI gets used, or robotics, and also some biotechnologies, gene editing, and so on. These have a clear social impact and also ethics considerations. In my area, electronic skin, there are also some ethics considerations and privacy issues we have to think about. And those are all areas that are potentially places to collaborate with social scientists. And also, we may, through the collaboration or dialogue, there may be applications or factors or things, directions we never thought about that might be interesting for us to kind of improve our technology or maybe even invent new things.
Yes. So we'll be in touch right after this meeting. Okay. No, I agree. I mean, we work a lot with our colleagues in the School of Medicine and School of Psychiatry, the Department of Psychiatry and Health and the Law School. And so I think that, right, I mean, that's what makes Stanford is this cross-disciplinary. And so,
and potentially some tools that's being developed could also be used. Yeah.
And evaluate the impacts once they're out
That's
there.
right.
So it's so I'm gonna talk about some current challenges, okay? And I'm sure people are thinking, you know, of this. And so Sky, my co-director Hongbin Lee, and our associate director Tina Scher, and others in our organization have been helping organize Stanford's annual economic forum in China for the past 4 years. President MTL came and gave the opening remarks every single year, whether it was in China, online, or at Stanford. In 2020, his remarks, he said, and this is quote, "The fact is that in this moment of challenge and uncertainty, it's more important than ever that Chinese and American students and scholars work together to improve our understanding of one another." That's end quote. What's your advice for the academic community in both China and the US, sort of looking forward to, you know, this coming decade, right?
Well, my message would be continue to collaborate, continue to work together. There's so many problems that our society is facing and mankind is facing related to climate problems, energy, health, sustainability. These are big problems that require all the talents and people around the world to work together to address these challenges. And also we need to reach good understanding of each other in being able to set appropriate policy that would help to advance the inventions or technologies or implementation of solutions. So it's not something that one country will be able to do everything. It really requires everyone's efforts and collaboration to make things happen.
And, you know, as the two biggest economies in the world, and as the two countries that have big investments into research and I think that it's more important than ever to do. I 100% you know, agree with you. So is there any special role that elite research institutes like Stanford should be playing in this current environment? I think everybody should be working together. What should we be doing? Tell me what I should be doing, and you know, what our colleagues here should be doing.
Yeah, I think, for example, the economic forum you just mentioned, that takes place or jointly organized with China. That's something that really is a great way to facilitate interactions and collaboration. And we would like to have more students exchange and students joining us, and vice versa. Continue our visits and collaborations with our Chinese colleagues. And I think these interactions are really important, and dialogues are important. And that's how Bell Labs created the collaboration. It's just to get people together. There's no set, even in many cases, there's no set agenda. It's just to create more opportunities for people to meet each other and interact with each other. And that kind of interaction is so important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think we need to get back to China too. And I was just, everybody in the China side, keep healthy, keep well, and we're really looking forward to coming back and doing that. I could ask you questions all evening, Zhenan, but it's unfair that we should give everybody a chance. And I already see questions in the Q&A. So just to remind you, if you have questions, type them into the Q&A box, and we're going to keep this conversation going. Here we go. So, and there are some practical ones here. Okay. I want to be a PhD student or postdoc in your group. What kind of requirements do I need? Do I need a good number of publications? So I have to have a PhD from a Chinese university. Who's in your lab? What do I need to do to prepare myself? or a lab of our colleagues at Stanford or other universities.
Yeah. The quality that I look for in students who join my group, or postdocs who join my group, are creativity and also depth of thinking. And it's not necessarily a long list of publications, but through my conversations with the potential candidate, I would like to learn how they think, how they come up with the problem they worked on, and when they approach problem, how they approach it, and did they have to go through a lot of challenges to solve the problem? Or was it just their professor tell them that you do 1, 2, 3, and they just implement? So that makes a big difference. I look for people who can really think and solve problems, and finding new problems on their own. Scott, again, you're muted.
I'm looking at the question and unmuting at the same time. So here's about sort of jumping on the other side of running your lab. I'm an early career, maybe towards my middle career person right now. And could you offer some insights and advice how to maintain our life and work balance, like balance between enjoying cooking at home, enjoying cooking in the lab, in the classroom, or working in the lab or classroom? How do you? What's some advice from you? That's right from the Q&A box.
Yeah, sure. I find the good thing of growing older is that I learn better about myself and know more about what I really want and what's priority. And it's human nature that we want to be able to have everything and do everything and get as much done as possible, but time is limited. We all have the same amount of 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. But to fit in everything is impossible. So it's I find it's really important for me to be able to let things go and not trying to want everything, and really focus on things that's important to me. For example, I want to have family. I want to have my kids and my husband be happy with having enough time with me, but at the same time, I have a large research group of more than 50 people as well. And I was department chair, just stepped down, and there were many things I had to do, but I find that for each case, there were things that was most critical that that I need to decide. For my family, they need a certain need me not to travel all the time, constantly. So I make that decision. I turn down a lot of the invitations. And with my students, the same thing. I can't be traveling all the time and no time with them, but there I can prioritize that for students who need more time, I spend more time. And some students' projects are going well, then I may spend less time at that moment. And same with my department. There were pressing things that I had to deal with. Then I focus on those. And other things are optional. And if I have time, I will do it. But otherwise, I just have to let certain things go. So that was my simple way of balancing things.
Yeah, yes, I think that we all know that, but I think that you just have to do the important things and let other things go. You can't.
Right. Let things go. Yes.
Right. So jumping right back into your field of material science, chemical engineering. Well, there's a question from the audience that says, what recent developments in your field are you most excited about? I'm most excited about your breakthrough, but in the sort of bigger picture, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in my field of skin-inspired electronics, we have been working for quite a long time to really develop integrated circuits, which is the key for processing any electronic signal or collecting information from sensors. And for many years, we had challenges to make such integrated circuits fast enough to compete with the rigid ones. But only in very recent this year, and last year, we had now finally managed to make integrated circuits that have speed and also density that are high enough that we believe now we are ready to move into building sophisticated sensors, implantable devices for patient with prosthetic hands or neural implants that we can potentially implant into the brain or even into the guts to be able to measure parameters and also understand how these different organs communicate with each other for the first time. So I'm really excited about these development, and they now get us really much closer to potentially implementing these new generation of sensors and electronics for medical applications.
Wow, it's fascinating. You could just see how much potential there is. This is related. It just came in. It says, how does your great work, electronic skin, etc., affect the field of traditional Chinese medicine, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Is there any overlap? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, certainly. The electronic skin provides a sense of touch to robotic hand or prosthetic hand, and in Chinese medicine, the Chinese doctor would be able to sense the pulse wave on a person and be able to tell whether this person maybe have a heart issue or kidney issue or liver issue, and it's still not well understood what the doctor actually sense and whether there are certain patterns that can be utilized to have early diagnosis. It will now, the sensors, I believe, are good enough, but it will require a lot of data collection to do some studies to see whether there are correlations. It will be interesting to find out.
I think there are. I mean, I think that's the ultimate integration of of the world with China. And so here's a broader question, and we should probably have a political scientist or an international relations professor answering this, but somebody wants to hear what you think. The world's a very different place now with U.S.-China tensions, the war in Ukraine. How might that affect STEM in innovation inside the U.S.? And how might that affect academic collaborations across borders, U.S.-China borders, other U.S. borders, and how can we cope with this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly the tension currently might affect how many collaborations that are being carried out across borders and affect students exchange and so on. And the long-term effect we still yet to see, and I'm definitely concerned about what might be the long-term effect on STEM-related innovation. And I think in general, if a research group is more enclosed or a country is more closed, then it will impact or suppress creativity and suppress innovation. So I hope we will be able to collaborate freely again, and without the concerns.
Our group Sky, we take academic papers and convert them into briefs that we send out to everybody every 2 weeks, mainly the policy community, the business community, and the one 2 weeks ago was on U.S.-China tensions and research in the U.S., and it's actually already had a negative effect on it. Not huge yet, but important to know that there's a cost to this, and it's a cost to the world, right? And
Yes.
I really think that's important. Here's another one. Jumping back over to sitting in your office, and somebody comes in and says, "What's your advice for students who are choosing academic path? Should they do academics or should they become an entrepreneur, or both, or neither?"
Yeah, I don't think there has to be a fixed path, and people in academia can be an entrepreneur. Actually, we very much encourage our students to have the entrepreneur spirit. That is basically they take initiative and solve problems by their own initiative. So with that kind of spirit, they can still be in academia, but still be entrepreneur. And also, it's not uncommon for people who start a company right after graduation, and then come back to academia after a few years, and it's tremendous learning a tremendous learning process to start a company. I started my first company more than 10 years ago, and I learned so much about the way of thinking and also developing the business plan and watching how CEO runs the company also allowed me to learn aspects of picking problems or just managing research group, and later take some leadership from a different perspective. So I really believe everything, kind of all the experience we have will contribute to what we do and how we think in the future. And as long as we pursue what we are, each individual is passionate about, then the path can go different ways. And as long as it's exciting, then it doesn't really matter where we are to pursue this path.
So keep your options open and interact and
right. Just follow the passion, and it will take you to take one to something that will be meaningful. That's the most important thing.
So here's another question just came in. It says, is there a difference between the creative research done by Chinese scholars and the creative work done by either US or scholars from other countries?
I think it's very hard to generalize different type of research or the creativity. And I think it's really the research environment and who are the colleagues and students and what kind of problems we encounter, and potentially certain problems that, especially if it's an energy environment or health related problems, there may be certain problems that are more pressing problems in some countries versus others that may lead to researchers focusing on different types of problems. But it's hard to generalize innovation or creativity, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We get all kind. Our collaborators that come from China are all over the spectrum, and they, because we work with so many different types, that they work together, and you do a lot. So that's very good. Here's a question that just came in that I think is interesting. What's the secret source of innovation? And she's saying it's really, the person is thinking, is that changing as over the last few years of your career, and is it going to be changing into the future? Is it evolving? And is Silicon Valley still leading the innovations on a global level? Et cetera, sort of around those ideas. I shortened the question a little bit, but
yeah, I think innovation frequently comes when there's a interesting problem being posted to people, because a lot of the times if we are not being asked a critical question or didn't even know there is a problem to be solved, then it's harder to think about solutions. And of course, it's a combination of having a vision, of being imaginative and think about what the future might be like. But on the other hand, these kinds of imagine the future comes from when I talk to people, whether they're from industry or from venture investment, or people from social science or economy, or from medical school, or from other departments. I think all these interactions are important, and that certainly I think the ecosystem in Silicon Valley of having all kinds of industry and technology that are ongoing, and different and there are people doing investment and the biotech, AI, and all the Google, the Apple, Facebook, Tesla, and all of these. I think it contributes to generating an environment that's problem rich, and when we hear these problems, it kind of stimulate those of us in science and engineering to think about what new things I can invent. Maybe to take the make the Apple phone to be a stretchable phone instead of this rigid one. Imagine you have a little thing that you want this screen to be any size you want. You just stretch it, then you get this phone that can change size and shape. So a lot of the things, I think, having just an environment that's problem rich is so important to innovations.
So stay in the Silicon Valley, everyone, and keep coming back. But then the things like the Silicon Valley, do that where you are. And
well, one can create it.
You bet.
Years, right, for Silicon Valley to become what it is, but it didn't start out that way, and took years to try to attract talent from all kinds of background, and then it builds this kind of ecosystem that inspire people to be more creative and think about innovations.
Here's a question. I think it's actually quite interesting. I don't know if you've thought about it. Recently, we have seen more and more Chinese scholars becoming presidents of U.S. universities, which is very, very encouraging, the person says. However, the percentage of Chinese scholars in top management positions in U.S. universities is still generally low, despite the fact that there's so many outstanding scholars of Chinese descent in the U.S. What do you think are the challenges, or should Chinese scholars just remain scholars and invent and let they focus on academics rather than management roles, or what do you think of that issue?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think similarly, as there are fewer percentage of female in management and top level positions, and there are fewer people with a diverse background in these positions, it will take more advocacy and education, and also those who are currently in such positions to really help to promote people from other backgrounds to take these kinds of roles, and also cultivating this. As I previously, I never thought about taking any leadership role in my earlier career, but it was my former dean, who now is provost of Stanford. When she was the dean of engineering, she said to me once, when I wanted to start an initiative, the Wearable Electronics Initiative, she said, "Zhenan, if you want to do it, I will support you." And then once in a casual conversation, she said, "Well, Zhenan, I think you will be a good department chair." And that, before that, I never thought about it. And I think these kinds of mentorship and encouragement also is very important to help people who maybe never thought about taking such roles to think about it. And I find it very rewarding when I took the leadership position. But certainly, I think encouragement and mentorship would go a long way.
Oh, that's great. And then Yeah, it's a trade-off. It's the entrepreneur, it's the
Mhm.
entrepreneur academic trade-off, and the management trade-off there too. So it's
Mhm.
this was asked very early, and I happened to skip over it because I didn't even, I didn't know it was possible that somebody could have a lab with 50 members in it. Uh, how do you do it? How do you manage 50 people in your research room and be department chair and run an initiative? No, but they really are interested in managing a group of a lab with 50 members in it.
Mhm. Yeah, certainly I think first and foremost is to hire the best people possible, and then the important thing I focus on is to create a lab environment and infrastructure so that there's mentorship structure within the group, not just me, one person being the mentor, but rather mentor my students to be mentor of each other, and figure out infrastructure so that the people can be productive within the group to get resources they need and get the training they need, and think about setting up standard structures so that people know where to get help, where to get resources they need, and know who to ask. So once that's set up, it takes time to set up the infrastructure. And also I'm constantly kind of revising or making changes based on different students and the group kind of structure or background of the people. Because over time, and maybe we started out with more chemists, chemical engineers, but over time now we have more electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and bioengineers in the group. Then it requires a different way of getting the right resources for my students and postdocs to be productive. So the managing aspects become much more important as the group grow bigger.
We're getting close to the end, but a question just came in, and they said, first of all, and I'm sure that all the people who are following us today would agree. Thank you for this nice, inspiring talk. The guest said, and for sure. And then he turns around. He calls him. What should a researcher do if he, and I imagine it's also she, would find himself struggling in publishing articles in high impact or factor journals, and start to struggle with this idea of getting into the industry, but there's challenges there. I know you've sort of talked about that for him. I think you can say that I think you've motivated him to ask this question one more time.
First, for publishing, publishing in high impact journal doesn't necessarily mean that work is high impact. I think the only time and can show whether a piece of invention or work really makes impact. And but it's not the simple impact factor should be used as the judge of whether a piece of work is important. I always tell my student the most important thing for doing research and it is really what we learn, what new knowledge we can gain from the research we do, and if we gain this new knowledge, what is the advancement it can potentially lead to in terms of application or or potentially the impact to the society. And if we are able to articulate that to others, then it will allow others to better understand the impact. And sometimes it takes years for the impact to actually be realized. But we shouldn't be focusing on high impact factor journals as a gauge of impact.
Good. Yes, exactly. We have pushed you for the entire hour, Zhenan, and I've learned so much, and it's so interesting. Your insights today have sort of opened up this idea of being a lab leader, a professor, a department chair, an initiative leader, running a company, living in Silicon Valley, having a family with kids, and it's communication. It's being clear and encouraging and mentoring. It's all those things, and then not being afraid to reach out to those with other talents. And it's the cross cultivation that really matters. I learned that today, and it's like everything Stanford should be and is. And the other thing I took away is that this U.S.-China relationship is still so very important. We want to continue to have Chinese researchers here, postdocs, students, professors, and we want to be able to go back to China and interact. And it's not only going to help China, it's not only going to help the United States, it's going to help the world. I took those things away from here. And if you're in the audience, I'm sure everybody out there got as much out of it as I did. And so thank you very much. We're going to do more together, and looking forward to that. So thank you again, Zhenan. Just to close, it's after the hour, and it's time to go. What we want is that Sky hosts many public events in a year, and you can view all of them past with a lot of the recordings. Remember, take that recording to your best friend. And upcoming events on our website. We will announce our spring program soon. That's after we all go enjoy the Christmas and New Year season. And we thank everyone for tuning in today. Stay safe and healthy. If you're in China, have your medicine ready. COVID is spreading around, and it'll be like the flu. And I hope that's all it is for if you get it. If you don't, stay healthy. Happy holidays. We look forward to connecting again to you soon. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Zhenan.
Thanks, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here.